Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Ahead podcast. My name is Ronaldo Stevens, and I'm your host on this journey to not only fund your future in education, but to find the right path for you while staying debt-free. You could say we're seeking truth in college, careers, and finance. Or careers, college, and finance. I may rework that order in the future episodes. In today's episode, we're going to go over credit cards. As a person that has fought and is still fighting student debt, I can honestly say that I'm no fan of any debt. But growing up feeling wary of money and unpaid bills, I shied away from credit cards for a long time. Not because I couldn't necessarily afford it, but because the thought of more debt or mishandling a card to create more debt terrified me. Credit cards are a controversial subject. While many people believe that owning a credit card is the only way to plan for large purchases and build credit, others believe that credit cards are the path to capitalist slavery and the devil. Despite all this, credit cards are a part of life in America. It is said that 35% of purchases are made with credit cards. While there are some countries that still use cash, we're already knee-deep in the credit card and digital wallet and contactless forms of payment. I know during my time in Japan, we saw a lot of people that used the point card system, where they just had their little public transportation cards and they could load that with cash, but outside of that, everybody took money. Even when we were buying furniture for our apartment, we went in and we had like a $1,200 purchase and we literally just paid cash because getting a credit card in Japan is a lot more difficult than it is in America. They are expected to use cash for those purchases or to go to a convenience store and use that payment system. I'll explain that more in another episode, but for today, we're just going to keep in mind that in America, credit cards are a large part of how we do everyday transactions. Unfortunately, because credit cards are a business, there have been some companies that try to take advantage of what's legal over what is right and ethical, and they have been enticing people to take bad deals. College students are one of the groups that are heavily targeted by credit card companies, not just for their inexperience, but because of their impulses. Younger buyers tend to have less impulse control and buy what they want, not what they need. On top of that, credit card companies will often dangle the promise of free stuff or free points in exchange for you signing up for the card, hoping you don't read the fine print. In my college days, not to date myself, but there were many instances of student orientations and special days at the student center where there would just be rows of tables with people passing out free, quote unquote, free gifts for signing up for some service or credit card. And I was so wary of this that I thankfully did not sign up for any, but I do have friends that signed up for $500 limit credit cards and ended up, getting themselves in trouble. But since then, the Responsibility and Disclosure Act of 2009 has changed the law so that anyone under 21 can't get a credit card without a cosigner. But that doesn't mean that 21-year-olds or even 18-year-olds with parent signatures won't be tempted to make a mistake. So, I want to give my warnings for credit cards, but I'll also give a few tips that are useful for anyone considering their credit card usage. Warning 1. Terrible interest rates and terrible introductory rates. Before you build a strong credit history, or if you've never had a credit card, unsolicited offers will present you a quote-unquote special credit card offer. If you have no credit, bad credit, or if they think you're just some chump with no credit card knowledge, they will give you an introductory rate for less than a year, or no introductory rate at all. And in the words of Sonic, that's no good. With all the unsolicited offers out there with 0% introductory rates at 15, 18, and 21 months, there is no reason to sign up for anything subpar. While not a scam per se, these bad offers tend to go to people who don't know any better, which is predatory in itself. Just a reminder out there to credit card newbies that 0% interest does not mean you pay nothing. You still have to pay something on the bill. There is a minimum payment to be made, and usually you have to make this payment on time in order to keep the 0% interest rate. So make sure you look at your monthly statements to see what that number is. Be careful. My counter tip to this warning: look for introductory rates that last for at least 15 months. If you have good credit, it's easy to find a card that goes to 18, 21, or 24 months or 2 years. Warning number 2, annual fees. One of the biggest ways credit cards can make free money is by charging annual fees. Considering that they already get paid from interest and transaction fees, this is a ridiculous notion for most cards. There are some elite cards out there that include a lot more perks with their cards in the forms of airport lounges, specialty access to events and theme parks, exclusive concierge services, and so on and so on. I think hotels are a big thing that are included in the perks of some cards. But if it's your first or your second, basically a beginner card, all of this is unnecessary. Instead of paying an annual fee, take that $100 or so and put it in a savings account or your emergency fund. Or buy 101 Arizona iced teas. Your choice. Warning number 3, the bait and switch. This is where you are offered a card that has a certain percentage rate and limit, but hidden in the fine print is the option for the credit card company to upgrade you to a different card without your permission. These are known as opt-out propositions, where the company is supposed to send you a notice and give you time to respond to their notification that your card will be changed. Store-sponsored reward cards are the most notorious for this, as the cards aren't used for normal purchases and are more likely to be forgotten about. Macy's had an incident where they upgraded many customers to an American Express card that had an annual fee, whereas the previous card they used did not. That means, or really that meant for those customers, even if they only got the card to get that special 20% discount or 0% interest rate for the furniture set they were buying, they ended up paying more than that in fees, and if they let that annual fee go, they had to pay penalty fees on top of that annual fee. Long story short, read the fine print. And on top of that, even if it is legal for credit cards to do the opt-out form, the ethical way to do an upgrade would be to have an opt-in form. And truth be told, this is how most cards do that. They will call you or they will send you a letter to let you know that there is another option available that is similar to the card that you have. A side note here, credit card companies will often increase your spending limit on the card you do have if they notice your spending habits getting close to that limit that they have set up there, or if they feel that your credit score prompts a increase in limit. Now, this can work in your favor because it does again create a larger balance, a larger credit balance for you to work from. But if you have a limit on the card as a safeguard to spending, this can work against you. Again, the moral of the story is read the fine print. That's why English class is important, kids. Warning number 4. The terrible gift or incentive if you sign up for a card you don't need. Back in my day, Back in my day, credit card companies used to come to college campuses and offer free items such as shirts, backpacks, gift cards, and, Domino's certificates in exchange for signing up for a credit card. Domino's was the predominant pizza delivery service at UCF. Fortunately, or unfortunately, after the economic crash of 2008, some people thought that maybe, just maybe, we should start protecting our less knowledgeable consumers and our more vulnerable consumers from companies whose sole purpose is to take money for life. And some politicians were like, okay, I guess. So rules were made, and starting in 2010, there were federal limits that, quote, apply to the marketing of credit cards to college and graduate students as part of the Credit Card Accountability, Responsibility, and Disclosure Act of 2009, the CARD Act. Even though there are two C's, so I guess it technically is the CARD Act. Under these new rules, credit card companies aren't allowed to offer any tangible item in exchange for sign-up. Tangible, again, being those shirts and gift cards that they could actually put a hand on. And on top of that, they couldn't do this on a college campus, near a college campus, that's 1,000 feet, or at an event sponsored by or apparently related to a college. So does this mean that credit card companies aren't preying on students on campuses? No. Though there are these rules, through clarifications offered by the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, it's clear that there are some workarounds. They can offer items for just talking to the person. That means you don't have to sign up. You just have to give them your time, and name, and phone number. And after that, heck, what's your social security, right? However, most credit card companies go away from that route and go to the credit offerings. Get a bonus $500 if you sign up today. And the fine print, of course, says something like $500 back after $3,000 of purchases in the first 3 months, which, as a college student, you should not be doing. And really, as an adult, you should not be doing unless, you do you. But the point is, any gift, quote unquote, that is offered is probably not worth it if the card is not in your favor. And when I say in your favor, I mean you should be looking at no annual fee, 0% introductory rates, and a low interest rate after that. And if it's a point card, points on everyday spending, not specific categories or not specific vendors, everyday spending. Warning number 5, variable interest rates. This is not a scam, but it is something to be aware of. Variable interest rates, also known as flexible interest rates, are rates that change over time, becoming higher or lower based on the index they are tied to, mainly the prime rate. The interest rates on your personal card can also change according to your circumstances. If your bank or card provider deems you a higher financial risk, chances are that your interest rates will increase. You'll notice these changes in the annual percentage rate or APR section of your terms, and more on that term later because that's also tricky. The personal terms don't just depend on your spending habits, though. Your percentage rates can change due to several factors, including promotional rates ending, periodic reviews of your credit score, and even missing a payment. The takeaway from this lesson is to read the terms and, of course, pay your bill. You can also try to get a card that has a fixed interest rate that only changes under very specific circumstances. But the best thing you can do is pay off your card quickly after your purchases, or don't use your card except in emergencies. Can't have a high interest if there's no charge to pay interest on. Not to mention that there are different interest rates for different card uses. Which brings me to my next warning. Warning number 6, cash advances. This one actually irks me because I feel that credit card companies do this as a giant way to just take advantage of people that are caught in a rough spot, because the cash advances on a credit card are notoriously higher interest than a personal loan. They are more costly than overdraft fees, and they only benefit the credit card company. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have to get a cash advance, I do feel sorry for you. But the only reason you should need a cash advance is in a strict emergency where you need cash, as in, maybe they're holding your dog ransom and John Wick isn't around to save you. So outside of that, use your ATM card, use your bank account card. If you don't have a debit card to go with your credit card, by the way, you're doing this wrong. Cash advances are wallet murder. You're basically putting your finances down like John Wick's dog, and we don't want people to come after you like John Wick. So don't get a cash advance. Don't get a cash advance. Don't use your credit card for cash advances. I said that 3 times, so again, don't do it. Truth be told, if you find yourself in a situation where you need a cash advance, you should not have had a credit card in the first place. And that seems like a no-brainer, but I am sure there is somebody out there that just knew that they were going to hit it big, but they only needed that extra little bit of money to get there. And they took out that cash advance, and then they didn't hit it big, and now they had debt, and it's following them down. Don't get a cash advance. Whatever you do, do not use your credit card to get a cash advance. It is basically the legal way for the credit card companies to become loan sharks. Do not get a cash advance. Warning number 7. Don't use your credit card for small purchases, just for the points. A piece of advice that I've seen going around the web for quite a while now is use your credit card for everything so you get more points. The problem is when you use your credit card for everything, you tend to get more and track less. Even with mobile banking, even with mobile banking, unless you log in every day to check at the end of each week or day, you're not going to know exactly what you're spending. I will say that some people do have that mindset that does track everything they spend in the week, but most of us don't. And just to put it in perspective, $25 a month of untracked fees that add to that compounded interest adds up very quickly, even if you're using your card just for the points. Compounded interest works against you in the credit card world. That is how credit card companies make their money. This ties into, of course, a bigger part of budgeting, which is tracking your spending. Part of preparing yourself for a credit card and financially is to track your spending in general. So to do this, what you'll need is a planner or a small notebook, and you'll need to track your daily spending for several weeks to a month. At the end of the month, you categorize where your money went. Personally, I track my money into the categories of car, that includes gas and maintenance, grocery, fast food, because again, just putting food, there are 2 different types of food, so I put fast food and grocery different, entertainment, bills, debt, and savings. Once you know where your money is going, it's much easier to determine how much you want in each category or how much each category deserves based on how you want to live. I know that many times I am shocked by how much I spend on fast food. I'm also disappointed how much salad I throw away at home. So that's why I often need to balance out the grocery and fast food listing. So tracking does help. It's very important for you to get into that habit and look at where your finances are going. Warning number 8. Credit card interest is calculated by daily average, not by the amount at the end of the month. One of the biggest tricks credit card companies have is by presenting their interest as an APR, that is, annual percentage rate, as if they wait until the end of the year to charge you interest. Of course, this is not true. And I learned this the hard way because I, last year, paid off a card. It was paid off in full. Like, there was several $1,000s left on it, and we paid the several $1,000s to get it to zero for that month. Lo and behold, the statement on the next month had a non-zero balance, even though I got the card down to zero. And I was like, what is this? And lo and behold, even with arguing with them, I had to come to terms that they actually charge interest daily. They just don't show it daily. So what they do, banks and credit card companies, they charge interest daily and then combine it into one fee presented on a specific day each month as stated in your contract. This means if you paid off the whole amount before your bill was due, like me, you will pay interest on the average that was in your account for the 30 days. If you had $5,000 in your account and paid it off halfway through the month, you'd still get an interest charge on the $2,500 average, which equals $38 or so dollars. That's 38 and a half Arizona iced teas. The bank gonna make their money, y'all. And this is one of the many ways they do it. Warning number 9, the minimum payment trap. If you're new to credit cards, you'll be tempted by how shockingly low the minimum payment is. However, thanks to federal regulations on disclosure, you can see on the statement how long it would take you to pay off your balance with minimum payments. As I've said before, only purchase things you can afford and things you have the money or a plan for. If your plan is to pay the minimum on something so that you can stretch out your money elsewhere, don't buy it. Just don't. Interest stacks up. Don't buy it. So that was my final warning. And some of you out there might be thinking, well, gee, Andy, if all these terrible points of credit cards exist, then why should I even get a credit card? I'm glad you asked, Officer Barney Stand-in. Credit cards are useful once you have income. If you don't have a job or income, don't get a credit card. The temptation to overspend is too great. You might think you have self-control, and some of you do. But why risk the temptation? So the first thing you need is a job so you can actually pay for things. That's why tip number 1 is get a job. It seems old-fashioned, and it may not come easy in some cases, but without income, all the rest of this advice becomes moot. So do yourself a favor and find a steady way to finance your dreams. Next, tip number 2, on getting your credit card, the first card you should get should be from your bank. Yes, it's boring, I know, but if you're starting out, a credit card from the bank that you have a bank account with, knock on wood, is always the best option. Other people may and do disagree with this, but for your first card, I believe it's the best option. Why? First, banks and credit unions will often have special rates and promotions for people who are already members, and also for first-time credit card users with that organization. On top of this, you can pay for your bill without having to set up a new account or worry about transfer dates or mishaps. It makes the exchange of paying your bill that much easier. Third, you can check out the status of your bank account and credit card statement at the same spot. One-stop shopping and convenience matters. So this is an excellent tip, even if you don't believe it. Most banks and credit unions offer credit card options, and so the convenience and ease of management outweigh the perks you may get from looking for another card. The next tip, tip 3, only use the credit card for things you can pay for or pay off quickly. I have a personal story for this, and it's actually the reason I got a credit card. I needed to pay for a more expensive flight, and while I knew I would have the money over the next 2 pay periods, I wanted to buy it early before the prices went up. Thanks to the credit card, I not only paid for my trip, but I was able to avoid the upcharge that comes with buying it the week of the flight. But the point is this: I already did the math and knew where the money was coming from. It was also an expense I was going to pay regardless of if I had a credit card or not. So, don't get a credit card to eat at Seasons 52 when you can only afford McDonald's. Use it to pay for the bed that you've already saved up for, or for the thing that you already have a plan on how to pay it off quickly. Side note here, I did up my credit limit to buy more expensive plane tickets when I was living in Japan, thanks to the advice from Ramit Sethi, the author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, a great book, and I will be sure to link it in the show notes. This book is a great starting point, or even middle point, for anybody that's trying to learn how to manage their finances. As we close out, let me provide some tips on what to do if you've been misled into signing up for a credit card. This comes from the online legal document site nolo.com. They say to be aware of information that's being asked of you when promised a free item or a points/perk system. If they ask for date of birth, income, and social security number, they are more than likely doing a credit pull, which will affect your credit score. If they are issuing a credit card, they must disclose important details such as interest rates, fees, or other charges. Not doing this will get the employee and that business into some trouble, and it merits a complaint from you to the Better Business Bureau, the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB. In either case, if the card has no annual fee, Nolo actually recommends leaving it open and just not using it because, 1, closing the card could shrink your credit limit, and 2, leaving it open could increase your credit score since you would have a higher line of available credit. Long story short for this whole episode is, if you haven't put some serious thought or research into a credit card, don't get one. If you would like more information on getting your financial house in order, I recommend watching the YouTube video that Ramit Sethi says about credit cards and his channel in general, as he has some great information on getting yourself ready to live your rich life. He also has his book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which I will link in the show notes, and I recommend having that copy in your bookshelf today. That's it for today. If you or your student doesn't have a bank account and need one, because before you get a credit card, you should have a bank account, I recommend heading over to nerdwallet.com to see what they say the best bank accounts are. I'm not affiliated with them, but they've been a steady source for financial information. If you have any questions for me, or just want to leave a comment or reach out, please see me at thinkingaheadpodcast.com. In the meantime, keep believing in yourself and keep thinking ahead.